Hello, everybody. Add in Terry right now. Thank you all for joining. I'm super excited to talk about this. And there's Terry. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome on this lovely Friday.
Thank you. You too.
It's boiling outside in South Jersey. I'm sure it's the same in Virginia.
Indeed, it is.
But since we already have so many people joining, I'm super excited about that. And I'm excited to go through everybody's questions. We have a ton of questions to get through, so we are going to jump right into it. This is my third baby. I like to consider myself somewhat of an expert at this point. Something that comes with a third baby is I'm already totally showing. I talked to my cousin earlier and she's barely showing. I was shocked. And my back already hurts, so that's really fun. But one of the things that I'm doing differently this pregnancy, my last two pregnancies, I did not take a prenatal. And I want to hear your thoughts on prenatal because I put my own together the last two times. This time I am taking Thorne's Basic Prenatal only because I'm too busy, right? Like I can't sit around and put together my own prenatal. The other thing I just noticed about it, which you and I are going to talk extensively about, is it has no choline in it, which I'm shocked about.
Yeah.
So let's talk about prenatals. What do you look for in a good prenatal?
So, hello everyone, and Jess, congratulations on your third baby making scene.
Seriously, at this point.
Yeah, it is. And so prenatal is super important in terms of our vitamins and our minerals. And so vitamin C is really important in terms of insulin support, in terms of adrenal support, in terms of how we manage phase one liver detoxification, because one of the things that we know during pregnancy is we're making a lot of hormones and we need to get that phase one, that cytochrome P450 set of genes really, really chugging nicely so we don't back up in our liver detoxification. So C is super important for that. Another one is zinc. Zinc is critically important for protein digestion because our digestion slows when we are pregnant. Also, it's really important for insulin sensitivity. And we know, and we can talk about more of that later, but insulin has been linked, insulin insensitivity has also been linked to infertility, but also gestational diabetes. And this keeps closing out, so I don't know why that's happening. But are you guys going black when you going black on your screen? Okay, fine. So zinc, again, for purposes of insulin support, for purposes of protein support, it's also immunological support. And there are studies that show that when babies take zinc in their first year, the brain can grow more, up to 40% more. So if it grows on them when they're out of the womb, then I presume also be really important for inside the womb. Another thing that's super important as a mineral is magnesium. Why is magnesium so important? Once again, it's really important from an adrenal perspective, and magnesium is an anti-contraction. So it may stop that preterm contraction.
Interesting.
Yes, but choline is by far, I don't know if you knew this, Jess, but choline actually affects DNA methylation. So it has an epigenetic response. It helps with our epigenetic expression. And so we want to make sure that that is critically there because we want to, as you and I have talked about in the past, it's not just our genes, it's a signaling to the genes and the expression of the genes.
Yeah.
So we want to keep those expressions turned on in the right way and also turned off in the right way. Choline is also the best neurotropic around for the brain. So when we talk about neurotropics, we call it brake fluid for the brain. It's super important for that. Also, choline is very important, especially if you have the COMT gene, which goes to how we recycle estrogen, because a lot of miscarriages result from an excess in estrogen relative to progesterone ratio, especially those women with the MTHFR C677T gene expression, where we recycle estrogen. We're not a great producer of bile salts, and that excess estrogen can actually contribute to miscarriages because we need sufficient progesterone to hold the fetus in the womb. So for a neurotropic effect, for a liver detoxification effect, for the COMT gene and the methylation C677T gene effect, our cognitive function, plus it's a very, very important fat for the fetus. So what's a vitamin that should not be in a prenatal in high amounts is vitamin A in the very times. Why is that critical? Is because as the neural tube is being formed in those very first 12 weeks, vitamin A can have consequences, negative consequences to neural tube formation.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so cod liver oil, you know, we're told take your essential fatty acids, but don't take it from cod liver oil, especially in the first trimester, because it can have negative consequences down the road for that. So
I love the Weston Price Foundation for their nutritional recommendations, but one of the things that they're big on is vitamin A and cod liver oil, and I just vehemently disagree on that one. So we'll leave that at that, and we will let Thorne know, for everybody out there watching and wondering what prenatal take. There's really not enough vitamin C in there. There's probably not enough zinc, and there's no choline. So this is why it's like very tough to just depend on your prenatal entirely, which is why for my last 2 pregnancies, I just did it on my own, because I thought, you know what, I know what my body needs, and I have enough people that I can consult with to really know exactly what I need to be taking. So when we're talking about choline, for the sake of this conversation, especially because it's body bio, phosphatidylcholine will supply choline to the body, but it also supplies phospholipids. And one of the things one of the reasons that's so important is healthy brain development, but it's also healthy cell membrane development. So your cell membranes are, the healthier they are, the healthier your gut is, your gut lining, your brain cells, your neurotransmitters, it's a lung surfactant for growing babies. And there's so many important reasons to take it. So by no means, that's one of my, like, you cannot skip out on a choline supplement. Phosphatidylcholine is like that on steroids, essentially.
absolutely. And if you have metabolism impairment issues, then you could take a little bit less of it, so it's not overwhelming the liver, or take it with vitamin C, which is a natural emulsifier, which meaning it's a fat breaker downer. So it's going to help manage that choline getting into the cells. And you're right, Jess, our cell membranes are made up of the fats that we have taken, not only taken, but assimilated over the last 90 days. So if we're taking these big gun fats that we can't break down, it's not going to help us. But if choline is a wonderful fat, and especially if you manage it with vitamin C, then you know you're helping to really break it down so your body can just drink it up. Your little cell membranes can drink it up.
For sure. I think it's one of the reasons my babies are so healthy, and I have really healthy pregnancies. I think everybody I've put PC on has a really awesome pregnancy, and it's quite an interesting supplement. We get asked a lot for recommendations on fertility, and if you don't have healthy cell membranes, and therefore, and PC pertains so much to liver health, you don't have healthy liver detoxification, healthy bioflow, which PC contributes to, then how can you detoxify hormones correctly in order to have easy, time getting pregnant?
You especially have to love your liver during pregnancy, because the liver will recycle almost 2 quarts of blood an hour or more. And it's trying to manage all of the hormones that we're making as we're creating life within us. And so you have to love your liver during pregnancy. Also, I believe that a lot of nausea is mismanaged fat metabolism impairment, because our hormones are surging and we can't break them down. And so nausea is a function of we're not breaking down our fats. That's the body signaling, get us emulsifiers, get some vitamin C in there, get some zinc in there, get a little bit of sea salt in there, right? You don't have an oxalate metabolism impairment, get some beet juice. That is a precursor to hydrochloric acid, which is going to help break down those fats. So all those are really helpful hints.
Those are helpful for nausea that I did not consult Terry with, and I wish I had, because I had a horrible first trimester. But I will say, I'm just going to plug one of Terry's products really quickly, because it's one of my favorite things, and now that I have it, I'm just so happy again. It's Wild Lights. Terry, talk to us about Wild Lights.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me about Wild Lights. That is a fabulous, through pregnancy, through breastfeeding, through life, and I work, as you know, Jess, with a lot of my world-class athletes. And they too need to be hydrated, they need to mineralize, and they need to keep their livers clean so they can manage their insulin. So why is Wild Lights a do no harm and do a lot of good? Well, I believe it's the only food grade electrolyte product in the market that is just made with 3 simple ingredients: watermelon, cilantro, and sea salt. Why that is so important, again, back to the sea salt for the emulsification, but cilantro is a massive liver detoxifier. It's really rich in chlorophyll. Chlorophyll aids iron. We need iron during pregnancy. And then the watermelon is a precursor to nitric oxide. We need vascularization during our pregnancy so we can move and pump all of that blood through our bodies. But the trifecta is that it helps with the sodium potassium pump so the cells can talk to each other. It helps balance uric acid levels.
I'm at home, so that's my dog.
Hi, doggy. We've actually even had it after pregnancy. The babies, we'll put little Wild Lights in the water, and the babies can bathe in Wild Lights because they can get that through their skin.
Yeah.
So Wild Lights is an electrolyte, a marvelous electrolyte formula. It's a liver detoxifier. It is an emulsifier. Vascular function, supports uric acid levels. It's just a win-win. And because, especially for nursing mothers, we dehydrate. And so we need those minerals. And unless you have an overt allergy to either cilantro or watermelon, this is a great formula. And I'm so happy you love it too.
I love it. I actually mix it with Elite. I use Elite for night cramps. I can't live without Elite at this point, but I have it in all my water. But Wild Lights there's just something different about it. They're 2 very different types of electrolytes. One's food-based, and there's just something very kind of like calming about it that I really like. Electrolyte, Elite, I will take like a shot of it before bed, and I never get leg cramps. I don't get any water retention issues. I get no bloating, no like blown up ankles or anything like that people talk about in pregnancy. And I swear by it for leg cramping. It's awesome.
I love that. And it is, the body is talking to us when we're bloating and we're blowing up. Essentially, we're having a mineral imbalance. When we're cramping, that's a mineral imbalance. So again, we really need to be careful in pregnancy with mineral imbalances, because once that happens, the neurotransmitters can start firing, excitatory neurotransmitters, and it can cause preterm labor. So it's really, really important that we get that balanced.
So another one that's not in a prenatal, in any form, actually, I'm looking at this one, and we would consider this one to be a good one, but it's pretty shocking. Amino acids.
Yeah.
I've taken this one all 3 pregnancies. I think it's a combination of 17 naturally occurring amino acids. It's Allergy Research Group. I cannot get enough protein in, and protein is so important when you're pregnant. And I just find that I can't eat red meat. It's so difficult, especially in the first trimester, but I know how important those amino acids are. So talk to me about how you like to recommend people get those in if they can't tolerate meat.
So really great question. Well, glycine in particular as amino acids is really important for women that can't do protein during pregnancy, because glycine helps the assimilation of amino acids. But amino acids have a multiple fold benefit during pregnancy. It's not just about the amino acids, so we can build our tissues and our tendons and our cells, but it's also super important for insulin regulation and glucose metabolism. People don't always tie, oh my gosh, my amino acids are going to really balance my sugar, but it's key. So it's really important for managing gestational diabetes and potentially not, to avoiding gestational diabetes. But women, because the meats are heavier, that again have to be detoxified by the liver and broken down, we tend to get sluggish digestion, because as the baby grows within us, it's going to start crunching our esophageal sphincter, where we produce our hydrochloric acid to break down protein. So as that gets squished, we're going to be less apt to manage those large proteins. And so amino acids are great. I love the Allergy Research. There's amino acid drops by Biotics Research, which they're great. I work with a lot of professional ballerinas, and they become hypoglycemic, and we just have them put it in sublingually. And I call it's just like gold for them, because it gets
Good to know.
gets them moving again. So if you're having trouble swallowing pills, you can just really dose that very, very lightly, and that's a really good option as well.
I asked Terry this personally because I take a lot of Calm. Terry helped us formulate Body Bio Calm. I'm not taking Calm unless there's a dire situation with my children in which I need to be taking Calm this pregnancy. It has rhodiola in it, and it just hasn't been studied enough. So that can adjust, adaptogens can affect your hormones. We don't want to do anything or recommend anything that's not completely safe and studied. And so one thing I did was started adding in a little bit more glycine, just a pure encapsulations glycine at night, and it's really helping me sleep.
Yeah, glycine is fantastic. Taurine also, so elements within. So, you know, we love Calm. I take it every night, and I've done empirical studies on myself, and it's doubled my heart rate variability when I use my Aura Ring. So it's getting me into parasympathetic nervous system response. And most of those ingredients, like you said, have been studied and are safe. The ingredients of glycine, which is in there, so you take the extra glycine on your own. You can also take a little bit of taurine. Taurine is really, really good in terms of managing that glucose metabolism, being an emulsifier, being a dopamine precursor. So a little bit of taurine is really important, and a little bit of phosphatidylserine, also very safe. So, yeah. And, you know, trying to get, Calm has a synergistic kind of magic formula, but if you can't, because of the rhodiola and because that has not been, you know, studied deeply in terms of pregnancy, then you can sort of one-off, again, like you said earlier, in terms of making your own multi, it becomes a little bit cumbersome. But glycine in particular is fantastic. And of course, the phosphatidylcholine has to be in everyone's arsenal during pregnancy.
Cool.
And then
nice part about this too is it has the PS in it. So
love it.
Want a little phosphatidylserine?
Love it.
In there.
So wonderful for that. So that would be a double benefit. And then a little bit of taurine, but glycine and PS and PC, that's a winner. And those are part of the ingredient formulation in Calm.
Yep. Indeed. And I talk about these in a blog post that I actually just posted today about everything that I take while I'm pregnant. So that is on the blog. Here's a question that we get asked all the time. If you go to CVS or you go to Whole Foods and you buy prenatal, it most likely has folate or folic acid in it. Is that what you need, or should you be taking something else? I know the answer for myself, but I would like to hear it from you.
It's very individualized. So one of the things that we look at the MTHFR gene expression, and so when you said if you're missing methyl donors, then generally you'll need folate, but not always, because if you have a tendency to over methylate, then I call it the push-pull, where folic acid may be more important. And of course, folic acid, especially in the first trimester for that neural tube formation, is super, super, super important. So I would say this is where you go to your genetics and also see if you have that MTRR gene expression where you're going to be lower in B12 and folic acid. And Jess, what do you need?
I definitely need 5 MTHF. So I even have it, even though that's the version in Thorne's prenatal.
Yes.
Folate as L5. Methyl tetrahydrofolate.
Yeah,
I take it as well.
That's the methylated form. And so the reason why that's so important for you, again, you have that MTHFR gene expression, and you need that methylated form of folic acid so you'll be able to use it, because people like us, I have that same gene expression.
1/3 of the population, right? If not more.
And actually, I had 3 miscarriages. You know, my children are now I have one in their late 20s and one in their mid 20s, but we didn't know about genes or anything like that. I just kept having miscarriages. It's because I have that MTHFR gene expression in the COMT gene. So had I known about folate, had I known about choline, had I known about glycine, had I known about zinc, then I may have avoided those miscarriages. So very, very important. Very important.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's one we get asked all the time. This is one that's this is a question that's a little I wouldn't say it's controversial. It's just that in Body Bio's world, we believe quite differently than most. So I take a fish oil, high DHA, in my 3rd trimester. I don't take it before that. Fish oil to me acts almost as a steroid in the body. And I don't take a fish oil all the time. I just take it when I need it. I prefer to get my essential fatty acids from pure linoleic acid and alpha linolenic acid. I know that I do not eat a lot of oxidized vegetable oils and rancid vegetable oils, so I can do that as part of my diet. But when you look, and what I find so interesting is we talk about like what are things to be taking for brain development for babies, I believe our Balance Oil and PC is what you should be taking because it's ALA and LA. When you look at baby formula, one of the main ingredients is linoleic acid and alpha linolenic acid.
Yes.
Now, the forms that they put into baby formula are dried, oxidized, most likely rancid. And it's so unfortunate because what you really need are those very cold pressed, carefully treated, delicate, essential fatty acids that are so important for our health, also for our fertility, for our baby's brain development. And it's such a huge part of breast milk, huge part of breast milk production. And so we get asked a lot, do you take a fish oil? And it's a little controversial because, you know, I believe if you take the mother essential fatty acids, you will have the downstream metabolites of DHA and EPA in the amounts that you need it, plus a little bit more for the third trimester when you really need that boost in brain development.
Absolutely. So great dialogue here around that, because first of all, we have to know our source. And if it's cod liver oil, that's a non-starter, right? It's just too
Right.
big, just a big gun. Secondly, like you said, you know, are they oxidized, and what's the size of the oil particulate, which can't be then broken down not just through the liver but through the gut, which then can cause nausea, can cause, and then we become fat malabsorbed. So this is one of the things I want to really tune in with your audience is, guys, taking fats doesn't mean we're assimilating them. And so when we're not assimilating them, then we actually cause a bigger burden on our liver and our kidneys and our gut. And so if you're going to take oil, then krill, which is a very, very, very small fish, might be more easily assimilable. Also, if you're going to take an essential fatty DHA, make sure it's cold pressed. But then if you have fat metabolism issues, you tend towards that. How do you know? Well, you look at your genes or you look at your body. Are you fluffy? Do you have edema? Are you puffy under your eyes? That's the thing. Some fats are getting caught in the lymph. If you have the MTHFR C677T, or if you have the APO gene, or you have the VDR gene, those are all fat metabolism genes. So let's look to managing them with that which can break them down. Emulsifiers like vitamin C, beet juice, Wildlights, you know, those things that are going to help break it down and pair them. So they can ride in together.
What I use, I know I have impaired bile flow. I know it just from, you know, doing so many different tests and stool tests and knowing, you know, my mom had her gallbladder removed and my grandmother had issues with it. So I take Ox Bile. I don't take Tudka during pregnancy because of its role as a chemical chaperone, but Ox Bile I do take, especially when I'm eating high fat, high protein, just to make sure I'm getting all those good fats in.
That's wonderful. And glycine will also be a precursor to hydrochloric acid, and betaine from beets will also be precursor to hydrochloric acid, and taurine here will be a precursor to bile salts.
So easy ways to get it from our food. This, it's funny because this is a bottle I just have at home because it's from Quality Control. As you can see, it's written on.
Love it.
Changed the name of Curanol to fish oil for those who haven't seen it. But it is CO2 extracted, which is awesome. So and that is from anchovies and sardines. That's where we source our lovely fish oil. All right, so we covered electrolytes for cramps. Somebody asked, can you take nootropics during pregnancy?
Yeah.
I stick with PC.
So yeah, PC is fantastic. I think it's the best nootropic out there just in terms of the overall brain health function, but zinc is considered kind of a near nootropic. And then taurine, again, in small doses, considered a near nootropic because it's a precursor to dopamine.
Interesting. And what form of zinc? So we're going to get into this conversation with magnesiums, but what form of zinc do you recommend?
What I really love is zinc carnosine. So why is zinc carnosine so important? One, it's most bioavailable, I believe. Two is it helps with the integrity of the gut lining. It helps with protein digestion. It's the one that I roundly recommend to have the most broad spectrum effect and positive effects.
Interesting. I take zinc carnosine. We take it especially during cold and flu season.
Yes.
I take it for, you know, my leaky gut and when I had SIBO and all these things pre-pregnancy, which fortunately all this stuff goes away when you're pregnant. Also add in our liquid minerals. I give it to my kids and I add in our liquid zinc as well, just to really try to get as much zinc as possible. And when I can eat oysters, I eat oysters, but I'm not eating them right now.
Beautiful. Zinc and selenium in seafood, you know, and they've told you a lot of pregnancies are told stay away from fish. Well, and shellfish. Well, not really, unless you have, you know, an overt heavy metal toxicity. And even if you do, you can purchase and consume the smallest fish. You know, a little snapper is only going to be this big. A perch is going to be this big. And so the bioaccumulation of heavy metals can be very small. And we need the zinc and selenium and the essential fatty acids from that healthy seafood. Now, am I saying eat it every day? We shouldn't be in pregnancy, especially any high allergy foods. Of fish is sort of in that first tier. We shouldn't be eating anything that's high allergy every day during.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I was, you know, at Weston Price Diet. One of the things that I loved that they did, because it is extra food sourced phospholipids and phosphatidylcholine's from eggs. So I soft boil a bunch of eggs on a Sunday. I'll try to have 2 a day. But I also noticed, like, if I just don't want it, don't eat it, because it is a highly allergenic food. And, you know, if your body's not craving it, just everything in moderation.
Absolutely. That's well said, Jess. You've got to listen to your body.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to go to, oh, anything to help hormonal headaches during pregnancy.
Okay. So first we have to ask, what type of hormonal headache are you having? Are you having a vasculodilated headache? Are you having a vasculoconstricted headache? So if you drink coffee and you feel worse, that means you're having a vasculoconstricted headache. And in that case, taking salts would be not good. In that case, what you would want would be magnesium, because magnesium helps you vasculodilate. Okay. If you're having a vasculodilated headache, then you don't want to take magnesium, because that's going to help, you know, that's going to dilate you further. We want something to vasculoconstrict. And in that case, some sea salt. We would want things that are going to, for example, what I love about Wild Lights, it's the perfect balance, because it has a little bit of sea salt for a vasculoconstriction, but then it has the watermelon, which has the citrulline, which helps with nitric oxide. And so nitric oxide, I'm drinking it now, as a matter of fact. It's my afternoon jam every. So we need to look at what is it going to be. So do we need magnesium to expand, or do we need a little bit of cell salts and Wild Lights to constrict? And are you having a hormone surge? So these hormone headaches, again, could be a function of your fat malabsorbed and you're potentially estrogen dominant. And so in that case, let's look to our liver. Let's manage that liver detoxification so those hormones can be better served. And everything we talked about before, the vitamin C is super important. You know, drinking green juices, I believe I've shared with you, Jess, I start every morning with my cilantro, my cucumber juice, I add my Wild Lights, I add my vitamin C, and I drink that, and I know that my liver is so happy. And I've been traveling during these last 20 months almost nonstop, believe it or not. And when I don't do that after a certain number of days, how does my body tell me that I'm a little bit hormonally backed up? I never use deodorant or antiperspirant because I never have a scent. But hormonal scent, that's telling me my liver's backed up a little bit and it's not breaking down my hormones. So that's another way to really have your body talk to you and say, well, wait a minute. Hey, my hormones didn't get super cleared through my liver.
Wait, that's such a good point also for after you have a baby.
Oh, yes.
Because like the hormonal surges that you have are crazy. The night sweats, the smell, like, no, I don't smell. And it's not okay what happens right after you have the baby, because your body's just pushing out so many hormones. So that's such a good trick for right after you have the baby as well.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And just to get all those, like, the water, but also the nutrients, the minerals, the electrolytes in for breastfeeding must be really helpful.
100% really is.
So that's going to take us also in terms of, you know, detoxification to constipation and gas. Somebody just asked me, I have like this pressure buildup after flying. I said, that's got to be gas.
Yeah.
But what do you recommend? I mean, I'll take magnesium citrate. Sometimes that works. There's so many different types of magnesium, and I didn't realize, like, you can't just take magnesium glycinate. It doesn't work the same way as citrate does. But, you know, there's just all these different things to think about. So what do you think is best for pregnancy, constipation?
Yeah. So again, if you're having massive vasculodilated headaches and you take magnesium, you're going to feel worse. But I love magnesium, and so let's talk about magnesium in the form citrate. It will bring water to the bowels. Threonate, it will go into it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and magnesium biglycinate or glycinate is more of an adaptogen for adrenal support. So they're very different. So not all magnesiums are created equal. If you're not having vasculodilated headaches, magnesium citrate really does the job. Also, very high doses of vitamin C will help support that. Apple pectin is also really, really good. We can do psyllium, also really, really good. And
Yeah.
sometimes what happens is you can take extra phosphatidylcholine because it helps, just the fats will help glide the stool out. So those things, but typically fiber will really help you, and we need the fiber. Another reason why fiber is so important, this is why I really love apple pectin, which is actually a do no harm, really safe during pregnancy, is what does fiber carry? It carries our hormones out too. So we're feeling hormonally backed up. We've got to get fiber in our system. The fiber is packed, it's almost like it packs up cholesterol, also packs those hormones and takes it out. So really,
I'm gonna buy apple pectin right now. Is it a powder? Is it a pill?
Powder, it can be pill. And I always like, because you're taking a fiber, I always like putting fiber in water. So even if you're doing a capsule, put it in water, because that's one thing about fiber, ladies, is if you take fiber and you are dehydrated, that is a very bad combination because it actually can back you up. So take fiber with a lot of fluids.
So same with psyllium husk too?
100%. Yes, you need both. Need fluid.
Good to know. I think that's so important. Now we're going to go to fertility, preconception supplementation, and then we'll go to the other questions that people have put forth. One of the things that I find just so fascinating, it goes back to, we do these tests to see essential fatty acid status, red blood cell fatty acid analysis. This movement to tell people to avoid vegetable oil. Yes, avoid vegetable oil, avoid store-bought supermarket. But again, know your source, because linoleic acid is so important for both male and female fertility. And it's, as you know, they convert to other fatty acids. It also converts into prostaglandins. Prostaglandins can either be anti-inflammatory or pro-inflammatory. And I think one of the most important things is that prostaglandins bind to prostaglandin receptors, which have a direct impact on our endocrine system. It has a direct impact on how that functions. And so people don't necessarily realize that, and they just starve themselves of sometimes really, really helpful good fats. And you think by eating avocado, olive oil, which is omega-9, that's fine, but very separate. That's never going to convert into omega-3, omega-6. Any other recommendations? So our recommendation is always balanced oil and PC for fertility. Healthy cell membranes is going to help everything. And I don't know what it is, but I have so many women who tell me I started taking PC and I got pregnant, which is a godsend and just wonderful to hear. But what else do you recommend for fertility, both male and female?
Yeah, so let's start with the women and then we'll finish with the men on fertility. So what's super important about fertility is if your thyroid is not regulated, you're going to have a really hard time getting pregnant. Also, if you have excess candida, you will have a really hard time getting pregnant. Also, if you have excess estrogen, you may get pregnant but not stay pregnant because there's going to be that estrogen progesterone imbalance. And at the cornerstone of everything is insulin. You have to have insulin sensitivity, because insulin, I call insulin the kind of the center, and then all the spokes of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, TSH, T4, T3, reverse T3, they all swim around it. So insulin has to be really, really regulated. What's a really good way to manage insulin, especially if you tend to be PCOS-esque? It's the myo and chiroinositol. Right? So myo and chiroinositol really helps bring insulin sensitivity back to the woman, especially if there's a polycystic ovarian scenario that we're looking at.
I smile because I took it to get pregnant with my first.
Oh, there you go. And we didn't.
And I was told, you have PCOS, you're going to be diabetic in about 10 years, and we should probably get you on metformin. And I went home and I was like, no, this is not, I was not working for BodyBio at the time. I lived in London and I was an art dealer, very different world. But I started doing my research. I started looking into doctors like Aviva Ram and her recommendations, and just was shocked at what was out there. So I started taking maca. I started taking inositol. I did a lot of butyrate for insulin resistance regulation, blood sugar regulation, cut coffee, cut alcohol, like really tried to level that out because I knew that my hormones were just all over the place and I just had a miscarriage.
Yeah, so really, really critical. And so I'm grateful that you had that insight and that, that you were gathering that information to really support that insulin. A really simple thing for thyroid is, unless you have a fish allergy or seaweed allergy, is kelp. Kelp is so important, natural iodine. So the thyroid hormone is made up of 3 molecules, 2 L-tyrosines, which is an amino acid, and 1 iodine molecule. That makes a thyroid molecule. We need thyroid to support our metabolic function. Without it, we are actually fertility specialists in this clinic. We've had people where even Shady Grove, which is our largest fertility center here in DC, they've been rejects and they've had Hashimoto's, and they're like, your numbers are so crazy, you'll never get pregnant, not even on IVF. Well, I have little Quaid and other babies that tell you that's not the right story, because we were able to help them not only regulate their thyroid, but we help them regulate their methylation pathways. If you are not methylating appropriately, and if you have that MTHFR C677T, I did, you do, that I had many miscarriages. I didn't know, I was trying to have babies 30 years ago, but that's super important. We have to be methylating optimally. We have to have our insulin working. We have to have our thyroid working, and we have to have our gut microbiome where we're not over secreting candida, because candida impairs the conversion of T4 to T3 in the thyroid hormone. Also, we have a lot of TSH made in our gut. So butyrate was also so important, not only for managing your insulin sensitivity, but also to bring that dysbiotic gut, potentially if you hadn't, bring it back to normal. So I can't say enough about those being the big fertility guns. Ethyl is super important to help bring that back. So let's talk about guys. Same thing, it's insulin. If your is dysregulated, your testosterone will be off.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so we got to get that T up by managing the insulin. What's a great way to bring T up for guys? L-carnitine fumarate. And again, working with my big athletes, it converts insulin to T, especially if you're insulin insensitive. And L-carnitine is a massive liver detoxifier. They've even done clinical studies showing that L-carnitine fumarate can actually reverse fatty liver. So you got to get that L-carnitine in there. Also, saw palmetto to manage inflammation of the prostate. We need that saw palmetto. Very contraindicated for women, especially in pregnancy, not pre-pregnancy, but in pregnancy. But for that saw palmetto. And then another one is deer antler. So deer antler, they're new formulations for men to get their virility up. So deer antler is an herb. Sounds really interesting. Sounds manly, doesn't it?
It does. I can't say I would, as a female, I wouldn't be like, oh, let's take some deer antler.
But the guys, so that also can be very important. But insulin, back to the guys. Guys, you're not going to have that big T, and your sperm aren't going to be as happy if insulin is dysregulated.
Insulin resistance is just the root of all evil these days, especially. And for me, it had to do with my fertility, but it also just, I think that a huge eye-opener when I started having babies, and then afterwards, and the ups and downs of hormonal changes and thyroid changes. Make sure when you do get pregnant to get your thyroid checked, and do it regularly, because those hormones are so important, and so often, unfortunately with women, they can just be so thrown off so easily. So it's a little bit of a crazy world to navigate. How do you, this is an in-depth question. How do you get rid of candida?
Oh, okay. So lots of ways. And, I'm a disruptor in the space in terms of feed candida with probiotics. Not really. And Jess, you and I had an offline talk about probiotics can actually increase histamine, and histamine can increase hydrogen sulfide, and hydrogen sulfide can increase your dysbiotic gut, therefore increasing candida and histamine. No, not all probiotics are good for candida. Yeah. So it depends on whether you're fat malabsorbed or not. We really like grapefruit seed extract, which is really good. Drops of grapefruit seed extract are good for candida. Another way to get rid of candida, stop eating sugar. really manage the sugar, alcohol. But another thing that's super important for Candida, Candida feeds on oxalates, and oxalates are found in healthy foods. So what are healthy foods that could be kicking my butt when I have Candida? Almonds, any form of almond, peanut butter for sure, and black beans, berries. They're high oxalates. Oxalates have biofilm. Biofilm fortifies the Candida. Now we're going down a deep rabbit hole of biochemistry here, but not all foods are great that are healthy for you. Also, any kind of fungus. So Candida is a fungus. You don't want to have pea protein, which is a fungus. You certainly don't want to have mushrooms, green bean. Those are all mycotoxins, and corn. So if you're gluten-free, trying to be gluten-free, do not eat corn. It's a
avoid corn at all costs.
Everything. It's not a food source anymore, guys. So we have a lot of information on Candida on my website, or even if you just Google Terry Cochran Candida, you'll have a bunch of blog posts that I've made around Candida. So we try to give information out because we believe information is empowering. So a lot of ways to get rid of Candida, but food is one of the first things because you can do everything else right. Eating the right, wrong foods will keep that Candida alive and kicking.
Yeah, I think that in general, people don't realize how toxic corn's become. You really have to be careful where you source it from, but also it's really high. It can be high in this mycotoxins and mold, and that goes for popcorn, that goes for when corn is used in gluten-free pastas, that goes for corn and bread. I really don't, when I say moderation, I mean like extreme moderation. I'm from New Jersey and we have phenomenal corn here, but I make sure I can only get it from a certain place, and then I'll only eat it a few times over the summer, even though I indulged the other night and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, great organic corn in the summer. Okay, a little bit, but I call it corn the devil because 90% of it is genetically modified. It's no longer a food source. Sadly.
It's not. And I don't know if people like you can tell it's just not digested easily. It's a gross thing. What about a weak soft cervix? I don't know about that one.
Wow, a weak soft cervix. So that has to do actually with your collagen matrix structure. So we have certain genetic predispositions that make us back to fat metabolism impairment. So for example, EDS, right? Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So where you have ligament laxity. So that goes to potentially a ligament laxity response. So in that regard, now again, I don't know your entire picture, so I'm only speaking to this and what could potentially be. You could have pelvic floor dysfunction if you have a tipped uterus as well. That could also be affecting it. So this is about really helping to fortify the pelvis through the right foods that will allow you to break down those fats into smaller amounts so you can then help build that collagen structure. So and also body types will tell us whether we're fat malabsorptive. We tend to be pear-shaped. We are generally don't break down fats as well. If we hold water, edema, if we're fluffy, that's a fat metabolism impairment issue. So before you get pregnant, I always say a nutrigenomic analysis is really important because it's going to give you your genetic tendencies. And frankly, for our families that we do it with fertility, we look to the nutrigenomic tendencies of both parents, and then we have the mom, prospective mom, eat to the intersection of their genetic predispositions of both parents. So we're avoiding foods that either one or both parents can be giving that genetic inference to that fetus. So we're not taxing the fetus in utero. But generally, that goes to fat metabolism, and I would be really lower fat during your pregnancy. So even in this wonderful PC, take smaller amounts so the body can assimilate it, and take it with something that's going to be an assimilator like the vitamin C, right? So get that fat in with an assimilator, but we always want that PC. And then just really, there you would pull back on really rich and fatty foods.
And just to plug it, because it launched this week. So truly liposomal encapsulated vitamin C. So interestingly enough, this will not give you gastric distress in high doses because it's really liposomal. That's the difference between liposomal supplements. There goes my dog again. To wrap this conversation up, because it's been 45 minutes and it's been 45 minutes of fascinating information, and I'm sure a lot for everyone to digest. A lot of the things we talked about for fertility you want to stop them when you find out you're pregnant, right? Yes. Like candida and grapeseed extract and things like that, or grapefruit extract. Yes. You don't want to continue doing these things. I mean, personally, I stopped butyrate. I stopped a lot of the supplements that I take. Right before I found out I was pregnant with this baby, maybe like 4 months prior, I found out I had SIBO, hydrogen dominant SIBO. I had, severe gut dysbiosis that was causing all these thyroid issues. So I was really working on fortifying my gut and taking care of leaky gut, getting rid of the SIBO. I actually almost had started a course of rifaximin, and thank God I didn't.
Wow.
And something kept telling me not to, but you really want to be cautious when you first find out you're pregnant, or you feel like you are before you take that test. Just really cut back on a lot of the stuff.
We're extremely conservative in this practice. We really cut back to the most essential vitamins and minerals that we've been talking about that can take you through the pregnancy. So the vitamin C, the magnesium, the zinc, the phosphatidylcholine, if you want to do a little bit of beets, like that betaine from beet sourced, the wild lights are fantastic. But unless of course you have been prescribed by your doctor, because we don't want to say don't stop your prescription. So that's not what we're saying. And that's between you and your healthcare practitioner to determine, should you continue doing this? And again, those things that we said are safe, like the glycine, little bits of taurine here and there. So it's really important. And you're like the Thorne that it's so interesting. We recommend that as our kind of basic.
And now it doesn't have choline in it.
It doesn't have. Wow. So we gotta match it with Body Bio PC. So
really, this is crazy.
Really, less is more during pregnancy.
Yeah,
less is more. So because they're studied, and the body's taking on enough toxins again. But that's why we see clients in clinic, and we're very conservative.
Sounds good. Well, if you guys don't already, or if you're watching this at a later date, go follow Terry, because she's just one of the best resources, and she's got great information that she puts on her Instagram. I will be pregnant for the next, hopefully, until the end of December. So feel free to ask me any questions about pregnancy, breastfeeding, World Breastfeeding Week this week as well. So any questions, we're always around. Thank you so much, Terry.
My great pleasure.
Bye.